Welcome back to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. It is that time of year where seniors are working, or when, excuse me, seniors are working on applications, and with applications comes supplemental essays. What are those, you may ask? Well, the Common Application is wonderful because you write one main essay and it's used for all of the schools on your list, but then individual schools may also have some essays that they would ask you to write. And those are called supplemental essays. And I am excited to welcome my colleague who used to help us produce this show and now just joins us as a guest, which is wonderful. And Christine Kenyon. And Christine is a former admissions officer at Babson College, and she also was a student interviewer and scholarship reviewer at both UNC and Duke. Hi, Christine. How are you?
Hi, Beth. I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. So we're kicking off the supplemental essay segments with the supplements for Wake Forest. And I will be honest, when I went to get their essays for this year, I was kind of shocked. So Wake Forest traditionally has had somewhere in the range of 8 to 9, and I apologize if anyone from Wake Forest is listening, but I think it was 8 to 9 essays, mostly short, that students had to write. And every time I had a student who was applying to Wake Forest, I would think, oi, this supplement is so long. And I did have students who would sometimes decide not to apply. And so I did often think, hey, maybe it's a good thing to have this because they're only going to get the students who are most interested in them, who are willing to fill out this series of supplemental essays. So I was surprised. Were you surprised when you saw the questions?
I was too, because my recollection has been just the same as yours, in that Wake Forest has some of the lengthiest, supplemental essay requirements. But what I really like is that I think they've kept the core of the supplemental essays, if you can call them essays, responses,
Sure.
that I always found most interesting. So I really like that they are making this process just a little bit easier for students in terms of the amount of work that they're requiring to apply without losing the focus of why they have the supplemental essays.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree. And on some level, they've really cut it way back. You could say they've cut it to 1, but we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let's start with the first one that they're asking for, and it is pretty straightforward. How did you become interested in Wake Forest University? Feel free to tell us about any contact you had with Wake Forest that was important to you. And it's a 150 words maximum. So to your point, is it an essay? It's sort of a mini essay. It's not very long. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think this is a pretty straightforward response that many colleges will have as part of a supplemental response. And I think given the fact that Wake Forest is pretty candid and pretty transparent about the fact that they want you to engage with them. By you, I mean students. They want students to connect with them. They want to learn about why you like Wake Forest, what you would be excited to do if you were there. They encourage interviews. I think this supplement makes a lot of sense. And it's an opportunity for students to say, I love the virtual tour that I took of Wake Forest and learning about the campus tradition of toilet papering the quad after football wins. I interviewed with so-and-so, which made me so excited to do X, Y, or Z. And I think it's just straightforward, to the point, 150 words to allow Wake Forest to understand how you've chosen to engage with them.
Right. And if you've done this they likely have a record of it in the admissions office, but what they're also trying to gauge is what were the most meaningful elements of that connection that you've made with the university, right? That's kind of how I look at it too.
Definitely. Because these universities that have the luxury of choice, which means they get more applicants than seats available, they're not just admitting students who can handle the work academically, because that's probably 80% of the students who apply to Wake Forest.
Right.
They're choosing students who they actively want to be members of the Wake Forest community. And so these responses allow you as the student to be able to say, hey, these are some things I'm interested in that I learned about when I connected with you. And here's how I could envision being a good roommate, a good community member, and what I'm excited to take advantage of if I were to be admitted.
Right. Okay, so the next question, or the next segment of their supplemental essays, is where, if you want, you could just do that one. It's a one and done. You do that 150 words. you're done, which is a far ways away from what it used to be. But in the next section, they say, we welcome the opportunity to get to know you beyond the numbers, which to the point you just made, lots of people have the numbers. You are invited to answer any, all, or none of the following optional short response questions. What are your thoughts about any, all, or none?
I would definitely err on the side of caution and do any or all. I would not recommend doing none,
Yes.
simply because, again, Wake Forest wants you to engage with them. They welcome it, they track it, and choosing not to opt in to let them know about your personality and things you like and don't like, it may make them doubt that you're going to engage with the community when you get there.
Right.
So I think when essays like this are optional, they're not really optional. I think that a truly optional essay is talk to us about how COVID has impacted your family, or let us know if there's been a disruption in your educational experience. Those make sense. It's you've either had that experience or you haven't, so that's optional.
Right.
Stuff like this, especially when it's kind of fun, give us your top 10 list. Take the 15 minutes to think about it and then sit down and write something, because it may make a difference.
Well, exactly. And quite honestly, if you don't respond, I also think there is the question, well, how interested is this student really in us? And even the most spectacular student, they want to know that you're likely to come if they admit you. And this is one of the ways in which they might gauge that is, are you taking the time? Are you putting in the time to answer these questions? So I'm with you. I would go with any or all. I would probably say all, but certainly not none. All right, first one. List 5 books you've read that intrigued you. Explain how a book you've read has helped you to understand the world's complexity. Again, these are all 150 words max.
Short, sweet, to the point. This gives Wake Forest insight into what you like to read, how you think about the world. The world is a complicated place, as we all know, especially in the last 18 months, 2 years. There's been a lot going on. So when you as a student have the choice, you have some time to read a book, whether it is by choice or it's been assigned by school, but it made you think in a different way. It allowed you to empathize with someone else, to put yourself in someone else's shoes, or simply to learn about a reality that isn't your own. That's what they want to learn about. How did this shift your worldview? These are the types of conversations they want students to be having once they get to campus, inside of the classroom, maybe outside of the classroom. And so this just gives a little bit of insight into how your mind thinks and different ways in which you approach those who might have a different background than you, which is important.
Right. And the only thing I would add there is, well, 2 things. When they say list, it can literally be a list, and it's not a book report, right? It's about how you think and react to underscore the point that you were making. Okay, here's the second optional, not really optional. Tell us more about the topic that most engages your intellectual curiosity. Again, 150 words max.
So I've really honed in on the intellectual curiosity piece of this. I was lucky enough to tour Wake Forest and spend some time on campus back in the fall of 2019, before the world changed.
Yes.
But it was really helpful because a lot of what the admission counselor talked about in the information session, a lot of what the student discussed on the tour, and kind of snippets of conversations I overheard when I was getting coffee, had to do with research. It had to do with things of an academic nature that Wake Forest is particularly proud of. They really emphasized how they always have Rhodes Scholars. They always have people receiving these grants to do incredible research. They were opening up some sort of new science center right in downtown there. So I think that Wake Forest is truly trying to understand, are you a student who's going to embrace the academic culture that is the heartbeat of Wake Forest? And if so, it just give us some insight. What excites you? And so I think writing about something that has a bit of an intellectual bent to it is important versus saying, I've always been fascinated with yo-yoing. It might be the case, but unless that has led you to make other observations and connections, you might want to focus on something else.
Well, right. If yo-yoing takes you to exploration in physics, which has led you to an interest in majoring in quantum physics, awesome.
Love it.
right? But if yo-yoing is just, it's a great way to get outside and I have fun with my friends and I have a group of people and we all yo-yo together, that is a great example of, and we try to think about how to do a better job of it, but you never mention physics, you never bring the intellectual element in, that probably doesn't work, right, for this one. Okay, let's go to the last one, possibly my favorite one. And this is, again, optional, but not really. Give us your top 10 list and its theme. Maximum of 100 characters each. That is different. 100 characters is not the same as words. Generally, that may include spaces, and it's, I believe, I haven't worked on this specifically on the Common App, but you will have 100 characters for each of the items on your top 10 list.
Right. And it's a list again. So this should be something kind of fun. Again, gives insight into your personality, how you like to spend your free time. I think this truly is, I mean, Wake Forest has had this question for many, many years. And
Yes.
I think it's a fun one. And
Yes.
when I was reading applications and you're getting into like the middle of the winter and you're tired and you're trying to really engage and understand who the student is, it's kind of fun to have a little bit of an insight into, what they enjoy, right?
Right.
And so I appreciate this one a lot. I think it's probably my favorite too, because students can have fun with it. You can list your top 10 favorite coffees that you will order at a coffee shop. You can list the top 10 baseball stadiums your family has visited in the US. You can, it could literally be anything. And I think it's just fun. I think it's an opportunity to show your personality and again, engage with the Wake Forest community because they're looking for students who see this essay and they're like, oh, that's kind of fun.
Right, right. And if, I always think about when I'm working with a student who's thinking about this and nothing comes to mind for them, I think, well, what are the things, those quirky things, right? Like, oh, you love ice cream. How about your top 10 ice cream flavors? How about your top 10 ice cream parlors that you've ever visited? How about your top 10 ice cream toppings that you could do, right? There's so much, but you do want to make sure, obviously, that it relates to you, that it's sharing this quirky little part of your personality. I worked with a student once who was really fascinated by weather. She didn't apply to Wake Forest, but based on the conversations I had with her, if she had, and she had said, I don't know what to write about, what are you thinking? I would have said, how about your top 10 cloud formations? Because she was sort of like obsessed with that. I don't know if there are 10, but if there were, she could have written about that. Your top 10, she loved country music. Her top 10 favorite country songs, which was sort of odd at the time for a teenage girl from Massachusetts to love country music, but she did, right? So think about like, who am I? And I would say that this is advice that I give to every student when they're starting to work on supplements. Who are you to the people who know you best? What are those quirky, weird things that they know about you? Fun things. Those could be really nice things to bring out in supplements if you get the opportunity. And to me, this is a perfect opportunity to do that.
I agree. I like to think about what my answer would be, and it changes from year to year. Right now, I think my list would be top 10 reasons why Halloween is the best holiday. Or fall is the best season, something to that effect. And I'd list all the reasons why, because I love the fall. I love Halloween. I adore living in Massachusetts and seeing the leaves change colors. But it's a pretty big statement to say that Halloween is the best holiday of all of them.
Right.
So, it would just be kind of something fun that both me as a writer, I think I'd enjoy writing, but also me as an admission counselor reading would be kind of fun to explore as well.
Well, and I do love that. And I like it also because it's a little bit more unique. And I would encourage if a student was thinking, oh, that fits me, that almost rather than fall, the Halloween one is the better one because it's the more unique one, right? I think about what I would write. I do the same thing. And part of me is like, oh, I would probably do like my top 10 favorite books. Well, I mean, geez, anybody could do their top 10 favorite books. I am telling them that I love to read and I have a top 10 list of books, but they've already asked me about the books. So, maybe I would do something quirkier like top 10 movies that were made from books that are better than the books they came from. Or, and I would put at the very top of the list, The Notebook, which I found unreadable, but the movie is awesome. Probably because, you got Ryan Gosling and you don't have Ryan Gosling in the
It
book.
does not hurt. He does
Right.
not hurt.
Exactly. But, things like that, like how do you make it really specific to you? That is the key to success for this one, and then actually for any of the supplements that you're going to work on when you're going through this. Christine, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
It was such fun. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. For those students who are saying, well, I'm not applying to Wake Forest, are you going to talk about other schools? Indeed, we are. In fact, next week, we're actually going to be talking about the supplements for the University of Chicago. And if you are applying to University of Chicago and you've checked those out, you know that they are quirky. So you probably are going to want to come and hear that conversation. I'm not hosting. Sally is hosting, with the added benefit that Sally used to work at the University of Chicago in admissions, so she can provide some additional insight. So I think that's one not to be missed. We're also going to be talking about the CSS profile. Today we talked about FAFSA. The CSS profile is another really important element to the financial aid process at many schools, 200 to 300 of them. So you're going to want to hear that. We're also going to be talking about reporting test scores. Should you report? Should you not report? With so many schools being test optional, I would say that this is a question we are being asked over and over and over again. I would love to tell you this is going to be the definitive answer. Whether or not you feel that way, I don't know, but we're going to do our best. And we're going to give you our thoughts about how to think through whether you should report your scores or not report your scores. And obviously, if you didn't take the test, then you're not reporting and you're good if they don't require them. And if they do, well, then I guess you better find somewhere else to apply. Okay. I mentioned at the top of the podcast, please don't forget, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's the way in which other people find us, and we want our reach to extend as far as possible. It's why we do these podcasts every week. We're just trying to get the word out. So anything you can do to help us figure that out would be great. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn. And we are also, if you have questions, we answer those questions on not a weekly basis, but we do probably every 3 or 4 weeks, we do a whole section on answering listener questions. We don't have that many right now, so send them. You could send them on Facebook, on Instagram. You could do them. You could send them to us via email, gettingin.voiceamerica@gmail.com. Again, it's gettingin.voiceamerica@gmail.com. And don't forget, we are here every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Pacific.